Welcome to Wisdom Exchange TV, Ignite Excellence Foundation initiative in support of Africa Business Women Connected Summit taking place in Ethiopia in 2013. The Wisdom Exchange is a resource to aid African women to learn, lead, and succeed in life, business, and community. It's a forum where women of all disciplines will learn from African women in politics, philanthropy, education, and business. These are the women that are the change agents of African communities, companies, countries, and continent. They will inspire us to stretch what we can do and what we can be. New interviews and expert perspective blogs will be updated regularly. So do subscribe so you don't miss an episode and listen to the leaders of today for tomorrow. Hello, my name is Suzanne Stevens. I'm the producer and host of Wisdom Exchange TV, as well as the president and founder of the Ignite Excellence group of initiatives. One of our main initiatives at Ignite Excellence is the Ignite Excellence Foundation, which mission is leadership, advocacy, and education. And our vision is to invest, develop, and inspire women leaders in emerging countries. As an inspirational speaker, a living coach, and a sales and business trainer, I've had the pleasure to work with the women we're about to interview today. And we're in for a real treat. We're in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, the African Union, with our leading lady, Bience Philomina Gawanas, Commissioner for Social Affairs, African Union Commission. Lawyer by profession. In this role of commissioner, she oversees the advocacy as well as the harmonization of coordination of regional and continental policies and programs related to social development. She's a human rights activist and a freedom fighter. She is considered one of 100 influential individuals in the world for women and children's rights. Please, let's welcome the Commissioner. Welcome, Commissioner Bience Gawanas. It's so nice to meet you. And I believe you're one of 4 female commissioners? 5 female commissioners at the AU. Yes. So I appreciate you taking the time because I know
my pleasure.
Your schedule is crazy. Now, as a social affairs commissioner, you've been described 2 ways, as a women's activist and a human activist. Which way would you describe yourself?
Why can't I not be both?
I think you can. So what does, as a human activist, what does that mean to you?
A woman activist, it simply means throwing myself into the game and try to change the rules of the game sometimes. Many a times as women, we are spectators. And I think being a woman activist means that you are in fact not a spectator. You are in there and try to change the rules of the game from within.
What would be one of the biggest rules of the game that you feel that you've contributed to changing?
Well, I have been a member of a liberation movement. I fought for the independence of my country. I have taught many young people in refugee camps that are today pilots and doctors and whatever you have. I engage with many girls in those refugee camps, convincing them that an independent Namibia will need them. They need to take care of themselves. And I'm glad to say that I engage in those kind of conversations. I never thought that maybe 30 years later, I will become the Commissioner of Social Affairs and talk about sexual and reproductive health and rights of women. So in a way, I think going back to where I started my life from, that's really where I was always engaged in. Now, changing the rules of the game is simply, to put it another way, to make women equal. And I always say not equal to men, because there is no male standard that I want to be equal to. It is about women and men being equal to each other. And the standard that we use to measure that equality is the human standard.
Very well said. Now, was there a catalyst in your childhood or along the way that made you feel that you needed to stand up for women's rights? And you've done it, as you just said, throughout your entire career. What was the trigger that this fate became your reality, and that you are at the AU in such a prominent position?
Well, firstly, I come from a family of 11 children. And there was no one time in my life as one of those 11 children that my parents discriminated against me. So I was very, very fortunate, even though we were a very poor family, that our parents never distinguished between girls and boys. Secondly, when I wanted to study law, when I finished my high school, and a white inspector, you must remember I grew up under apartheid Namibia, in a colonized Namibia, where as a black person you were really nothing. You had no rights, you had you basically did not exist apart from providing the labor. And when I decided to study law after my eldest brother was murdered in Namibia, I was told by a white man, by a white schools inspector, that my intelligence as a black person is much lower than that of a white person, and that therefore I will never be able to study law. And I became a lawyer. I became a lawyer, and for me it was such not a journey, but it became my passion. My passion to seek for justice, to seek for fairness. And that had to do with the death of my brother. But more importantly, I wanted to prove apartheid wrong. I wanted to prove men wrong. That it has got nothing to do with the fact that I'm black or that I'm a woman, to wanting to achieve and also to contribute. Not just achieve, but also to contribute and make a difference.
African women, educating African women, which was one of my goals of just being the conduit for that. What do you think that African women have that's special in your travels? Do you see that they have anything special?
They are very strong women. They are very powerful. All that they need to do is to find the power within themselves. I think a lot of times we are left by the wayside. You know, society creates an image of women that we start believing in. But I want to believe that I look at my mom, my own mother, 11 children later, she is still alive and kicking, and still give us the wisdom of her, you know, of her age. And so, why do I want to believe that African women are not strong? I mean, when we sometimes sit and talk, it says they have got a very interesting way of showing their power. They do it behind the scene. So men takes the decisions, but the power rests with women. But because women have never been in the face, you know, if you like, it's always about, I will give proper advice, I will give proper counsel, but in fact, they make decisions. And I think that is what I want to believe in. I also believe that we have got a passion. Passion maybe because of coming from communities where you are not an individual, you belong to community. And so the spirit of I am because you are there. I'm not saying there are no selfish women. I think, you know, there are. But by our very nature, we always want to belong.
So what advice could you give to a woman? For example, it sounds like in your family, quite unique, because it sounds like your father and your mother treated the boys and the girls as equals,
yes,
which is not always the case. So let's say you don't grow up in that kind of environment. Do you have any advice for women to still pursue their potential even within their parameters where they're not treated as equal?
Well, you know, firstly, we live, and unfortunately, you know, despite years and years of fighting male dominance and patriarchy, we are still living in that world. But I want to believe, and I always say to girls when I speak to them, I say, look at me. I did not fall from heaven. I came also from a background that many of you are familiar with. Why did I get to where I am? I got to where I am because I wanted to be where I am. Despite everything, I had the patience. I was not in a hurry. It took me many, many years to sit here as a Commissioner for Social Affairs. But I don't need to sit here in order to bring about change. And as I said, you have the power within you. You just need to really discover the potential that you have, despite whatever challenges you may go through. If you read biographies of African women, you will understand where they were and where they are now. So I really want to believe in know who you are, have a passion, have a vision, because that's the only way that you will know where you are and where you want to be. And most importantly, I think, and you will understand better as a business person, take risk. Get out of your comfort zones. Because sometimes we sit in comfort zones not because they are nice, but because you do not want to take risk and know what is out there. And express your wishes and your hopes. I think that is really what I would say to African women, that it is possible.
Yeah. And you don't have vision to see a better version of a situation or yourself. You have no desire to actually take the risks. Yes. So you know, somewhere, and education often helps with vision. If your parents don't have it, then education can often open you up to that. When you look at Africa, what have you seen to be the biggest injustice done to women today?
An exclusion, not because you lack the intellectual capacity to make a contribution, but simply because you are a woman. And for me, I will always compare my experiences as a black person growing up in apartheid to what women are experiencing. It is not nice to be on the sidelines. It is not nice when you know that you have got the capacity and people are not making use of that capacity and that potential. I am an African woman and I cannot stop talking about our own culture. Patriarchy exists everywhere, but we also have our cultures and our traditions that excludes women, or some cultures that dehumanize women. And I do not believe that if we are all human beings, that we can treat another human being that way. Now, I do not believe that it's only the physical side that one needs to look at. Emotionally, it can destroy you if you are made to believe that you are nothing. And to pick yourself, to pick yourself out of that kind of a situation, it is sometimes very, very difficult. So education, yes, very, very important, because I want to believe that it is a negotiating tool for women. It's a bargaining tool for women. Because it's only when you know and you are aware of your environment and about the possibilities that exist out there that you can negotiate the terms of your engagement. Whether it's on a personal level, whether it's on a societal level, or even at the level where I'm sitting.
I've been in Africa for 7 months, and this is my 4th visit to Africa. And you talk about traditions. And in my experience in talking to a lot of women and men about Africa, and what makes it such an interesting place is a lot of those traditions. And people are so afraid to lose those traditions. I happen to really like what you just said, and I would like you to expand on it, is about some of those traditions are suppressing women, and many of those traditions are actually doing that. Where can Africa strike the balance between tradition and holding on to it, and progression?
2 weeks ago, we had a conference here. And we were going to address harmful traditional practices. But we wanted to have a different conference. We did not want to have a conference where we witness and women come and talk about how they were cut or what and what were happening. The theme of the conference was celebrating courage and overcoming harmful traditional practices. And the purpose was for us to reflect on our culture both in a positive way and also how to deal with the negative. Because when you deal with culture, it is the way of life of people. Whether good or whether bad, you need to understand why are they just deliberately doing that because they don't like women? Or is it something that they believe in that has come passed on from one generation to the other generation without question? I think all that is happening in today's world is that we have said that human rights are indivisible. They apply in every home, in every village, and that is what has made these issues visible. Because when you adopt the constitution in your country, and in your constitution you say women and men, or there's gender equality, and women have the rights to this, that, and the other. And if anything then impinges on that the constitution guarantees you as your right, whether it is culture, whether it is whatever it is, it has to be fought. But at the same time, I think there is also a big misunderstanding that if we fight negative cultures, we are also going to destroy the African culture. And that's why we need to talk about both. We need to talk about what is it that we need to promote. And sometimes in this conference, I ask the question, can we use our positive cultural values to overcome the harmful ones? Yeah. Because the methods out there in the West might not necessarily be the solution to fighting harmful traditional practices. So this is again looking at it anew and to say, yes, it's about the rights of women, but it's also about the identity of the African woman. And how do we marry the two? How do we make sure that our culture is in line with the rights? But there might be, in fact, cultures that have given women more of a role than what women had, in other parts. So I really do not want, when I talk about culture in Africa, that we immediately talk about FGM. No, we have got very good rituals. We stand together, we care, we share, we believe in the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because you are. That is what we believe in. And that is what we have to reclaim. Because if we do that, we might just as well question the cultures that are contrary to those values and beliefs.
And to your point about, looking at the traditions and trying to look at the positive element of those traditions to change some of the negative elements. I talk about from problems to possibilities.
Yes.
The problem is some of those traditions that do segregate women and demean them. But there's the possibilities, and I love that you're doing that. Something else you really brought up, and I just had an experience last evening. I was out with a group of entrepreneurial women from Ethiopia, and the question part, asking the question, questioning. And I recently had a little bit of an experience I've never had before. I am not African, I'm Canadian. I am white. And I've grown up very similar to yourself. I have 3 older brothers, but we were treated equal. So I've never been alienated because of being a woman. Could not do something because I was a woman. It doesn't matter what it was. I broke down and I cried my eyes out. I never thought I just cried, and I realized everything that we are doing here is to empower women, and here I am, I have to wait. I can't. My husband could go and I cannot. I cannot possibly experience what women here have experienced, but I felt some of that. And I was talking to the women about it last night, and I asked them, why do you accept this? And they answered, because we never questioned it. That's how we were brought up. So the questioning, having the question, is
framing the question.
Framing it, having it, framing it, and then asking it is such an important thing to really get that equality that you're talking about.
No, it is, you know, it is so true, because even here, you know, when I first came here, there were a lot of assumptions made, and I said, oh, wait a minute. Yes, it has been done like that, but at least now you have got women in leadership, and we think differently, we do things differently, we want to bring that who we are into the equation of the AU. And it has been like that. You know, I was a public service commissioner, and when I joined the Public Service Commission, we had rules that were openly discriminating against women. And we had women in the civil service that never questioned it. Maybe inside, yes, inside they knew that it was unfair, but that acceptance of the unfairness, I think that is the challenge for us. For us to keep on saying, why does this rule exist? What does the rule want to achieve? If the rule wants to achieve discrimination, then we have the right to question. And that is what I also want to impart on women in the AU, that we should not just accept things because it has always been like that. We should question if we feel uncomfortable, if we feel that it is not just and it is not fair.
I think that is just such a powerful message, is to start the questioning, and that will start change. And do you think there's consequences to questioning, particularly as a woman?
Oh yeah, definitely.
What do you think some of those consequences would include? It is, you know, some of us that are like that would be, you know, would be termed that we are, how do I say, that we want to become men, that we are power hungry, that we are ambitious. And I said, is it wrong to be ambitious? Is it wrong to want to have power? The wrongness of it all is what you use that power for. That, I think, is you know, I mean, and I think generally men feel a little bit uncomfortable when they are dealing with women that are questioning them, because you must also understand that the questioning should not just happen from the side of women. The questioning should also happen from the side of men. To question the status quo, to question why they were always privileged, to question why they are doing the things that they do. So it's not just women that have to question, you know, where they are at. I think men have to do that as well. So it's nice to be up here, you know. It's nice to have the power, but it's always about how do you negotiate, you know. Would you rather let bygones be bygones because you don't want to rock the boat? You know, that is, I think, where when we are saying it's not always easy, I think that is where it comes. And I think we should also, as women, understand that it's not, you don't start questioning only because you are Commissioner for Social Affairs. You start questioning at high school. You start questioning in your home. That is where it all starts. It does not start simply, and that's why I always say, you don't need to sit in a position to be a leader. You don't need to sit in a position to be a change agent. You can be a change agent by simply asking, Mom, why does my brother not wash the dishes? Why do I have to do it? If you can get your kids to start asking and challenging you, because sometimes we may also do things very unconsciously in our homes, even though we
you know, act differently outside of our homes. So the questioning must start there.
We have a really good point in regards to men questioning too. As my husband's working alongside me on my vision, and that for African women is, your husband followed your dream, and he's confident and he's capable, and he left his leadership position to do that. And to see men questioning, that is really where I think possibly the bigger change could even happen. Because if only women are doing it, there's only so much evolution that can happen. But when men start doing it.
Well, when one time my husband was traveling with with our baby, I think the baby must have been 1 year old, and we arrived at the airport, and I said bye to them. And after they left, someone asked me, "How can you do this?" And I said, "What did I do? How can you let your husband go with your child? Your child is so young." And I said, "Would you have questioned that if I was the one that was living with my child? What is it that makes it difficult for my husband to take care of a 1 year old? He is not breastfeeding her, but every other thing he can do."
Yeah.
And that, that you know, is really the kind of things that we faced with every day, and it's really about getting it right and making our husbands also. I mean, how many husbands follow wives when they are posted abroad? How many will be willing to give up their careers? So that's why the assumption is always that if a woman is pursuing a career, the husband will not go. But the assumption on the other side is that if the husband is the one that is pursuing a career, automatically the wife will follow. But it's changing. It's changing. You know, there are feminist husbands out there.
And you know, like with anything, when you're a trailblazer and a pioneer and you're the first, these things take some time. And so you know, African women need to thank women like yourself who have started those processes and asked those questions and challenge those sorts of things. Now, do you have advice for women who want to get into politics in any shape or form? Being involved, be it in the AU or when you're in Namibia, you know, you've always been very active. How would one go about getting involved and getting their voice heard and getting their questions heard, even more importantly?
You know, I find it very difficult to always explain this question because I come from a very, very specific background, not in terms of family, but because the liberation struggle in Namibia, you could not sit by the sidelines. You were involved, and I got involved, and I was one of the few women, young women at that time, that was willing to stand on public platforms and to speak. Where I got it from, I don't know, but it was there. When you are in that corner, you will get yourself out of that corner. And that is how some of us started very early on in our lives. As I say that if you have that passion to wanting to become somebody, you will pursue it, you will get there. You will look around you, you will look inside of you. And I think it's always search and you will find what you want.
Now, would you say, would you attribute that passion to be the most significant thing that altered your course of your life, that passion not to be put in a corner?
Yeah, but it was, I mean, I did not want to become a lawyer because I thought that I can make a lot of money. I became a lawyer because I thought that was the only way that I could find justice. Justice because I lived in a society that was very unjust. I lost a brother that was killed by white people in my country and his body thrown on the road. I could have given up. I could have said, is it worth pursuing? I became a lawyer almost 20 years later when I went finally to the UK to study law. Now, I was 18. I only went to university when I was almost in the middle 20s. But I had that, and so if you want to go into politics, don't do it for the glamour of the job. Do it because you feel that by being there, you can make a difference.
What would you say is the most challenging aspect of your career now?
I said I work in an organization that has been existing since 1963. It has changed. It is now the African Union, and you have got the organization, you're at the Organization of African Unity. It is an organization that is still very male-dominated. When we came here, before the change, there were hardly any women that were occupying. I'm not just talking about commissioners, I'm talking about the staff within the AU. It took women activists to campaign to make sure that gender balance was acknowledged within the AU. And that is how we got the 5 women and 5 men to start with. It is now the challenge is, how do you make sure that that principle trickle down into in the organization, but also in our own countries. It's very interesting that here at the continental level, the leaders agree on the principle of 50-50, and at national level, it does not happen. So how do you make sure that the ideals, the policies that you are formulating, we have very good policies here at the EU. We have got the gender equality, we have the protocol, we have everything. How do you make sure that ideals and principles enshrined in these instruments make a difference for women in this organization and everywhere else? So you sit up here and you can see what we call commitments. But for me, really the challenge is the translation of these commitments to give a better life to our people out there. You just feel that there is a very, very huge gap between the two. So we keep on, going to our heads of state and we put through very important decisions. And I wonder, what happens down there. I started a campaign 2 years ago called the Campaign for Accelerated Reduction of Maternal Mortality in Africa. For short, it's called CARMA. And I launched the campaign simply because I said, we had been talking about HIV and malaria and all those kind of diseases. But it does not focus on the gender nature of diseases. But if you talk about maternal mortality, you really put it in the face of many people that there is no reason why women on this continent should die being pregnant or should die giving birth. And it also challenges our own culture, because I said, wow, children are so important in the African family. But then the question is, does Africa care about those that are producing those children? So it really created a very good entry point into discussions surrounding gender equality, women's sexual and reproductive, health and rights, bringing in the culture element, and all of that. Now the reason for the campaign was simply to say, you have got all these wonderful policies and instruments that we have adopted at continental level. How do we translate that into action on the ground? So CARMA was somehow a campaign to try and bridge that gap. Today we have got about 37 countries that have launched the campaign nationally and are continuing to launch the campaign. And I always tell them, don't be politically correct in doing this. put yourself on notice to the women and the children in your country that you care. It is not the question of more aid in order to rescue the lives of women. I think it should be about African taking ownership of problems and bringing solutions to those problems, because many of the actions that can be taken to save lives may not even cost a cent.
Absolutely.
It calls that question to be asked that we have said, do women deserve to be treated like this? That is the question.
And you know, this could be a 5-hour conversation in regards to is the aid the answer? Because I have my opinions on that as well. But we'll leave that for another conversation, because I think that's a good conversation in its own right. Now, in your experience, you've done so many initiatives and had so many success in all the programs that you've implemented that I said in our introduction, quite a few of them. Have you ever implemented something that just didn't work? A project that just you didn't get buy-in, it failed, and why did it fail, and what did you do about it?
I cannot remember. I will really have to think very hard about something that I did, because you see, the difference is that I do never do things on my own. I have to make sure that others believe in it. That is always my starting point. I will suss, I mean, as we say, you will first put out your feelers to see, is this something that if I push, that it's going to happen. And maybe at that point in time, if you put out your feelers and you realize that it is not going to happen, it's not going to happen. But then I also get involved in something that I passionately believe in, and I'm going to carry it out. That is, I think, for me. So I will not get into something that I do not believe that I will carry it through. I will give you an example. When we had, last year, we had a debate. We always have a theme at the assembly, at the summit, where the heads of state meet and debate. And last year they were debating on maternal and child health. And I just felt, or we felt in the department, we want to do it differently. We had this kind of debates before. What have we achieved through these debates? What are the points? And we decided we want to have a moderated session. And people said, it had never happened. It's not going to happen. And I said, give me one reason why it never happened. Because no one asked the question of trying to do it differently. And it was convincing this one and convincing this one. And we had our moderated session the first time in the African Union.
Did it work out well?
It worked out well. We had Zainab Badawi from the BBC. She came, and we had civil society, we had heads of state on the panel. And the debate went on and on and on. And, I was glad that there was one time that I basically walked out of a meeting and I said, this is it. If you cannot support me, this is the end of it. I went home, I slept over it, and I said, no. They have not given me enough reason why it should not happen. So it's going to happen. And it happened. So yes, you give up along the way, but if you have really, I mean, I look at many people. I look at Wangari Maathai, for example, and I'm saying, what has made her to start and to persevere and to continue, not to give up? It is her passion. If you have that, I think you can move mountains.
Speaking of moving mountains, have you ever felt uncomfortable doing something? I call this sort of my edginess segment. Something that you felt, something you do that made you feel uncomfortable, but you've had to continue to do it in order to be in the position that you are in as the commissioner.
Well, there are times that, as I said, you don't want to rock the boat. So you accept to be treated differently. It's not that you like to be there, but it's easier to be there. So you accept sometimes humiliation. You know, the same way as you were saying that, you know, you suddenly realize that even though you are sitting in these kind of positions, you are still being treated like less worthy of others. And you just say, it's okay, I will let it pass this time. I mean, I don't want to make a fuss. I don't want to raise the issue now, because if I raise the issue, we get into this debate. And I'm talking about sometimes being put down by men. And then, and many of them know that I don't usually shut up. But then, when I don't shut up, it does bring a little bit of discomfort in the situation. So I would look at it and say to myself, is this a life and death issue? If it's not a life and death issue, maybe I should pass this one this time. But I also pick my fights.
So being uncomfortable is knowing when not to say anything.
Yeah. I mean, you feel uncomfortable, and then you pick your fights.
Yeah.
You say to yourself, this one, I'm going to fight. The other one.
Yeah. You know, that's really good advice too for other women, because sometimes always saying something means you never get heard.
Yes. No, absolutely. I mean, I had friends that would keep on correcting when the person says he. Then they would always say, and what about she? And I'm like, is this not really overdoing it? And you are absolutely, you are right when you say that if you make too much of a nuisance of yourself, do you really get hurt? Do you really put across a point that people will take with them and think about it? So I think sometimes we overreact on things that you can say, okay, yeah, this is...
The old saying of, you win the battle, lose a battle but win the war. It really has something
exactly.
to say.
You have to pick your battles.
Now, if you were to define leadership, how would you define leadership?
I want to define leadership in terms of humility. A lot of us occupy positions, but we occupy positions that are bigger than us. And because these positions are bigger than us, we have to fill the space with unnecessary jargon and egos and all that kind of stuff. And that's when you forget to be humble. But if you occupy a position and you think that you are bigger than the position, that you don't need to fill the space with unnecessities. So for me, it is always going to be, how humble are you to be able to impart knowledge, to be able to impart that within yourself to others. That only humble people do, not people that have got big egos. They don't do that.
So if you were to give advice to a woman starting a project or leading a project, a team or initiative, what sort of, if you could give us three as an arbitrary number, pieces of advice to make them the best leaders, what advice would that be?
Take the plunge.
Starts with the first step, absolutely.
Take the plunge. Many of us sit with very good ideas. Share your ideas. Don't just sit there and say, I want to do this and I want to do this. You will never get there. How do you make sure that your idea becomes real It is really to say to yourself that I can do that. I'm always scared of entering business because mine is mine is always, oh my gosh, you have to put 50,000 US dollars, and what if it does not work? I will be losing my 50,000. I do not think that I can put 50,000 and I can get 150,000. It's the mindset that must change, that it is about taking that first step and say, I have an idea. And many of them sit there with ideas, but we do not always have the knowledge. So how do you gather the knowledge? How do you bring your idea with the awareness of what is going out there? Maybe somebody has already started, and you can then follow on from there. So I'm saying that the ideas are plentiful. It is really at what stage, a point in time, do you transform that idea into action, and you can only do that by being aware of the environment within which you live, always sharing your ideas and getting ideas from others, and that's how you put together concrete plan to move forward. But I want to always say that the power is within us. We must just grab the opportunities that are there. And it may be easier for me to say that, but I just want to remind always that I was there.
Well, you're the commissioner, so I think you probably took advantages, took those opportunities, and obviously you would not be in this position if you hadn't done that, for sure.
Well, the opportunities can come in two ways. You are thrust into it, you are thrown into it, and you have to swim. Or otherwise, you create those opportunities. When I came, I never thought one day I will become a commissioner for social affairs. I had a wonderful job in my country as the ombudswoman of Namibia,
yes,
where I was dealing on a day-to-day basis. I love working with people. That's the biggest part of my job that I miss. That I work with people. Maybe I should not say that I don't work with people, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That I was traveling within the communities, really coming face to face with poverty, face to face with despair, but also face to face with hope and resilience amongst the people. And I think many a times we sit and we complain and complain and complain, and you look around and you say, my life is not that bad. I drove in a taxi one time, and the driver said to me, madam, if you constantly look up, then you want always more. But when you look down, you say, thanks God for where I am.
If there was one thing in your career that you would do differently, what would that be?
I would most likely not want to be where I am now. I would really have preferred to continue staying as Ombudswoman of Namibia, because I could see every day that I made a difference in the life of a pensioner or in the life of a person that is being discriminated against. It is comfortable, it's fine to sit here, and maybe by sitting here you also become a role model for other women, and they, for them also to aspire to be here. But surely I want to have an opportunity where I choose a career that I feel that will satisfy my passion, that will really make me to do the things that I want to do. So what I'm saying is that we sometimes follow paths that we have not created for ourselves. And you can go along the path, it gives you the power, but it does not necessarily mean that it gives you the satisfaction of wanting to make that difference. And I also say always to people, Parliament should never be the ultimate objective. At your local level, at local government level, you can get into that politics and make a difference. But when we talk about women, we always say, you know, members of parliament or ministers. And I say, those are very alienating structures. You can combine a woman's familiarity as well as the difference that she can make where she is. So if we can really encourage women to follow their dream, to follow their paths rather than just following it because it's important for us as women to sit in powerful positions. I think it is late in my life to start saying that if I wanted to do something differently, I would have followed my path.
In politics, things have to change at the top for things to also change at the bottom. So without women like you in positions of power, if you will, things would not change at the grassroots level. And one needs to hope that it's going to trickle down. So you don't see it at the front lines as much as you used to, but you're making probably a broader impact. Because not only Namibia is being affected by your decisions, but Africa.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm not playing down. I want, because the reason I mention that is we need leaders like you, and we need more leaders like you, so that the net gets broader and encompasses. Yeah, the net gets broader, but we need to be very, very, very clear that leadership does not happen only at the top.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What makes the difference is how do we make those leaders that are invisible visible. That is going to be our challenge. It does not help to have the net at the top as if you are now operating with you can spread it as wide as you want. But the challenge is it does not trickle down. It does not necessarily trickle down. I think it is important that we women in powerful positions also ask questions about ourselves and about really what is it enough for people to see a commissioner for social affairs as a woman, or are they seeing a commissioner for social affairs that is trying to make other women visible, to make the vulnerable visible? And I have been working in communities where I have seen very resilient women. Women that have made a huge difference in their communities. But they don't have a voice. They are not visible like Bience Gawanas. And I think we need to look at leadership, not only at the top, but also at the bottom, because it's the bottom that informs.
So then what's next for you?
I want to become a grandmother.
Okay.
I am a grandmother already. No. I want to go home. I want to, I've been away from home for 8 years. And before that, I was away for 12 years in exile. Went back to Namibia, lived in Namibia for maybe another 10 years or so. Then I came here. So I just feel it's maybe time to go home and see what I can do. My big ambition is still to make sure that whatever happens in others must still be translated into action. So if I can help to bridge that gap. I have always been interested, as you know, in governance and human rights issues. So after my stint as Commissioner for Social Affairs, I may want to go back into that field of work.
Excellent. What words of wisdom would you give today, based on what you know, to your 10-year-old daughter?
I will say to my daughter, here I am as your mother. Do what I have done. I will tell my 10-year-old daughter, please wake up and go to school, because I know the difference that every morning walk to the school will make in her life. And I will let her play.
Excellent. What do you wish you were told at 10 years old?
That life is not always determined by your circumstances, that you can go beyond your circumstances. Remember, at 10 years old, I might have been going to bed hungry. But if my mom would say to me, it's okay, it will become better one day.
So what words of wisdom would you like to share with African women?
I will tell African women that I'm absolutely proud to be an African woman. And that I'm a woman. That I never want to be a man. I never want to be different. I want to be able to tell them that life is not always that bad if we want to rise above our immediate challenges. I also want to tell them, don't focus on the problem. Move from the problem to a solution. Always look at problems with a solution in mind. I tell my staff, don't come to me and talk to me about problems. Go one step further and come and say, this is the problem, but this is what we propose that we can change. We also live in a world that provides absolute opportunities for enhancing the creativity within us. And I think that is what African women should take with them. That we live in an age where you don't need to be stuck. I mean, when we hear about the social network, I say to African women, this is our age as well. Let's hold on to that. Let us network, not only by always going to meetings and being face to face, it's important, but we can also network using the instruments that are out there for ourselves. I go to many meetings where everybody talks about innovation and technology and so on. And I'm saying to myself, oh, you know, how much do we empower women to also make use and get access to that? So, you know, I will really tell African women that we are strong. We are strong, but we should start framing the questions.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for fitting us in your schedule. And we're in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with the Commissioner of Social Affairs. And what a great opportunity to talk to someone from the AU about women's plight and the opportunity to really question. No matter if you're a leader of your family or your community or your business or of the AU, we should be questioning more. My name is Suzanne F. Stevens, and I'm co-producer of Wisdom Exchange TV alongside my husband, Michael K. Ginrich. We're traveling through Africa, interviewing women like the Commissioner, women who are trailblazers, pioneers, leaders of many, who are really making a difference for Africa, for their communities, for their country, for women, children, children, and men as well. If you know a woman we should interview, please email us at info@wisdomexchangetv.com, and we'll research this woman to make sure that she fits our criteria. She is truly a pioneer and a trailblazer. If you would like to advertise on the site, by all means send us information at info@wisdomexchangetv. You can advertise on the site, as well as we're looking for sponsors. For 2013, we're looking now for sponsors who can take advantage of promoting themselves on Wisdom Exchange, as well as through all our initiatives to launch Africa Business Women Connected Summit, a huge first-time event that we hope the AU will also be involved with. And lastly, my words of wisdom. We've talked a lot about questioning, and I'm going to take the questioning because I think that was such powerful advice. No matter where you are, ask why, but make sure you also listen to the answer. Then you can do something about it. Thank you for joining us.